Hey buddies, Miss Pugly here coming at you with another Borderlands 3 video. Today we're going to be covering Moze's 4th skill tree. I'm going to go through the whole skill tree and rank each skill point just so you guys can know what to look for when the skill tree comes out. Now this is subject to change obviously because certain things in every skill tree has Mayhem scaling or just doesn't work how you think it does on surface. But for the most part it'll stay all the same, I feel. But let's start off with just action skill. Alright, so I'm an idiot and I accidentally have my face cam covering the skill points, so I'm unfortunately going to have to add them down below here. Her 4th skill tree gives her, instead of it being, her piloting it, it summons like a little pet similar to Flak, but it has a gun. It keeps whatever weapon you want on Iron Bear, but it can only have the same weapons on each arm. So you can't have like a railgun and then a minigun. You gotta have like the same weapons on both arms, but that don't matter too much. Now, whenever I look at a skill tree, I always like to look at the middle and the bottom one because you want to see what we're getting ourselves into, and plus it's fun to see what capstones are. So right now at the capstone with Moze's 4th skill tree is running on fumes. Whenever Moze or Iron Bear ignites an enemy, Iron Bear does not consume fuel for a short while. We'll go back to that later. Now in the middle we had fire up. Whenever Iron Bear or Moze applies a status effect, and that's the name of the tree doing status effects, you gain increased fire rate. That's going to be great. But let's rank the capstone and midstone later as we look at the skill points, because we just want to get an idea of what the skill tree is going to be, and that's what the capstones kind of tell us. It's all about status effects so far. So first thing is biofuel. Basically, whenever Moze or Iron Bear ignites an enemy, they both regenerate health. Very first point, it's only 0.7% per second, but at max points, it gives us 3.5 per second. I personally feel like this is only 2 stars. It's very niche. I don't feel like the health regen is going to help very well on Moze herself. It might help Iron Bear since he gets Iron Bear armor regen, but we don't know how squishy Iron Bear is going to be in general. So I don't really feel like this particular point is going to be very useful for Iron Bear. Most cases before, we would summon Iron Bear, just get out of him and then let him autopilot with Autopilot Bear, and his action skill would come back really quickly, so we never really had to worry about his health. Now with here, considering he's a pet, we do have to worry about his health a little bit more. I don't feel like this is a good enough investment to allow Iron Bear to stay on the field for longer. It only lets him stay on the field for every time you're igniting an enemy, and so that means you have to be fire reliant. I just feel like this is very niche. I don't feel like it's going to do a lot, and you need to put 5 whole points into it to even get 2.5% per second for Iron Bear. I don't feel like that's going to be useful at all. You never know, maybe this will actually be phenomenal, and I'm just wrong. Here, big surplus. While Moze's action skill is on cooldown, she gains bonus incendiary damage. This is a really great skill because at max stacks, this gives us 15% more gun damage just as a passive. You don't even have to be holding like a fire weapon. All weapons seem to be able to deal incendiary damage while this is on cooldown. You're going to summon Iron Bear, or even Pilot Iron Bear exit, they're going to be on cooldown, but you're going to instantly get a 15% bonus of incendiary damage. That's a lot, and incendiary damage is the main type of damage you want to go for, so you're going to get a lot of out of this particular one. I'm going to give this 5 stars. It's very good. I feel like it's going to be very useful in any type of build. Next, we have really big guns. At max stacks, it gives us 20% more Iron Bear damage. That's a decent amount of Iron Bear damage. It's only 20% and you have to put 5 points into it. It seems like it's really good for the people who want to get as much Iron Bear damage as possible. It's going to be really good for piloting, but the pet Iron Bear is going to deal significantly less damage than piloting it, so I don't feel like a 20% increase is going to help, but we got to wait and see how much damage Mayhem 10 level 65 Iron Bear pet does, even say how good this is. So I'm just going to give it a 3 stars because you can get it right off the back, like spec into it. It's at the top of the skill tree. You can just get it and just use it for any type of build. It makes Iron Bear more useful, so I'm going to give it 3 points. It might be contender for 4 points, but I'm just going to give it 3 stars for now because you're able to get 20% at the top of the skill tree. You don't need to waste a lot of points to get to this. Next is double time. While Moze's action skill is active, she and Iron Bear gain increased movement speed. At max, this gives us 12 movement speed. That's not a lot. That's not a lot at all. Only benefit you get really would be that Iron Bear is moving faster, and 12% isn't like a lot to begin with. That's not even sprint team speed. So I don't feel like this is very useful at all. I'm just going to give it 1 star. Not very useful. Maybe there'll be a class mod that makes double time extremely powerful, but for now, I'm just going to give it 1 star. 12% means nothing to us. Next, we have armanus havoc. This increases Moze's gun damage for each weapon, shield, and grenade that matches the element of her gun. This is similar to match set in her green skill tree. When you're at max, gives a 10% per matching item. So say you have an incendiary weapon, which you will have for this type of build. Your shield can match that. Your weapon can match that, your grenade can match it. If this takes into account the other weapons you have equipped in your SDU slot, this would increase our gun damage by a total of 50%. Now 50% is a lot for gun damage, so right off the bat it seems really good. Now we got to see how it works. It's always possible that this will just be for the weapon, shield, and grenade, so it could just be a 30%. Even if it was just a 30%, that's a huge amount to increase your damage just passively. Keep in mind you would need to use a grenade that has the same element, and that's kind of hard. There's not a lot of good incendiary grenades, so if you're going all in for incendiary, I don't feel like you're gonna get the most benefit out of there. But grenades kind of abysmal in Mayhem 10 anyway, so you probably don't even need to worry about that. The only thing that you might be using grenades for is cloning mining tracker to get, you know, the most out of your vampire skill. So I'm only gonna give this 3 points. It seems really good on surface, but depending on your loadout, you're going to miss out a lot of things. I could see the Vindictor Gas Call being great for this because you get the vampire effects from it, I believe. So you could do an all corrosive build and get the bonus incendiary damage from big surplus and still ignite your enemies, I believe. We have Explosive Fury at max stacks. That's give us 27% more status effect chance, 15% more status effect damage. It's really hard to say how good this ability will be because unless they rework the status effect damage in Mayhem 10, this ability is just abysmal. This doesn't really increase your damage at all. Only thing that it's useful for is, I guess, maybe getting you a higher chance of igniting yourself, but you know, you can already ignite yourself with one shot with the sellout if you want to use an elemental projector combo. So I'm gonna have to give this only 1 star. This isn't gonna deal a lot. This isn't gonna help you out a lot. Really disappointing. Unless they reworked status effects, and then it'll be great, but it's only status effect damage, so that's only dots. It's not gonna deal a lot of damage. The only benefit you get is increases of the ignite chance, and you know, you're already as Moze, you want to shoot a lot, so you're already going to be shooting a lot, and Iron Bear is going to maybe have the railgun that does fire damage, so you're going to already have a lot of chance to ignite. Yeah, I don't feel like you'll ever need the bonus 27% chance. Heck, maybe I'm wrong and it's a 3 star, but I definitely don't think it's anywhere close to 5 or 4. It's definitely a 1 star for me. Let's move on to action skill augment here. Whenever Moze or Iron Bear inflicts a status effect on an enemy, Iron Bear's armor is restored. That's really huge. It's any status effect, so you don't just have to ignite people, but you know, name of the build is to ignite, so you probably will want to ignite. This is huge. That's 12% of max armor, but what it doesn't tell you is that it probably has a cooldown. I know we can't tell right now, but this more than likely has a cooldown, because if you were able to just ignite the enemy like really quickly and just restore Iron Bear's armor like really fast like that, this is god tier. This is 5 star. But if it has a cooldown, which it doesn't tell us it has a cooldown, but I feel like it's going to have a cooldown. It just makes sense to me. This is just a 3 star. We got to see if it has a cooldown. If it has no cooldown, 5 star instantly. But if it has a cooldown, only 3 star. Let's move on to another action skill augment. Whenever Iron Bear Pet is deployed or destroyed, it triggers a nuclear explosion, dealing massive radiation damage. I really don't think this is very useful for Iron Cub at all. The name of the build, it seems like, is trying to keep Iron Cub alive as much as possible. So you're not going to be deploying him constantly, and he's, I'd hope, not being destroyed constantly, because Iron Bear's cooldown is pretty hefty. Unless you have an action skill cooldown build that lets you have no bonuses on Iron Cub for some reason and just let him get destroyed and deployed, it's only just going to deal a huge radiation explosion, and it's only 1 explosion. I don't feel like this is going to be very useful. You're more than likely going to want to try to keep him alive as much as possible. I could see if this ability let Iron Cub trigger a nuclear explosion occasionally, but it's only on deployed or destroyed. That's not very useful. It seems like everything is helping him to stay alive. I don't feel like that's very useful, but heck, it might just be able to one-shot enemies. We never know. We're gonna have to see how it works with Mayhem scaling. But for now, I'm only gonna have to give it 1 star. It doesn't seem like it has a lot of uses. Next, we have Fired Up. Going back to the capstone. This was the every time we apply a status effect increases our fire rate. That has a max stack of 5, so that's a 25% increase to our fire rate. That's actually pretty dang huge. Being able to fire faster increases our DPS overall. That's going to be really crazy since we're dealing millions of damage on Mayhem 10. If you're using a consecutive hit build with Moze, like light show, something like that, you're going to deal crazy amounts of damage with this increased DPS. I feel like this is extremely useful. Just use a light show fire pistol and you're good. You're going to deal a lot of stuff right here. That's great. 5 stars right there. Next is a hard word. We're just going to call it nitro engines. Iron Bear increases maximum fuel and action skill cooldown rate, and max stacks that gives us 25% more fuel and more cooldown rate. This is really beneficial mainly for being able to keep Iron Bear alive longer. It kind of seems like it's a little bit more useful for when you're piloting him. That's really cool. But the only disappointing part is that if this is mainly going to be helping when you're piloting him because like more fuel keeps him alive longer, you have to go down pretty dang far in the skill tree to even get the benefits from that. I could see you going to really big gun, harmonics, havocs, fired up, and then going 5 points in here, but that's 16 points you have to waste. And right now we can go down 2 full skill trees and then get the mid cap, and that's the amount of skill points we can use. I just don't feel like this is on the right tier to be useful for most build. In the meta right now for Moze, this is kind of disappointing that it's so down below. If it was on number 1, it'd be a 5 stars instantly. But since it's all the way on tier 4, I'm gonna unfortunately give it a 2 star. I don't feel like it's gonna be used in a lot of builds. You kind of have to go out of your way to get there, and it doesn't feel like it's gonna help out Iron Cub more. Sure, it's gonna keep alive 25% longer, like duration wise, and you get your cooldown faster. But you're able to get your cooldown really quickly from Grizzled and Explosive Punctuation already. So there's no point to have the 20% increase. I feel like this is just a completely unnecessary point to have at tier 4. So 2 stars, unfortunate. Next one is never going to give you up. Whenever Moze Iron Bears apply a status effect to an enemy, Iron Bear gains in fuel. This is really good. This is really good because every single time you apply a status effect and name it a skill tree, as I said like a billion times already, it's applying status effects. And even if you're not doing down the skill tree, you're already applying status effects naturally by just fighting, because all the guns you use are with Moze is going to have incendiary shots because every build uses Cloud of Lead. You're going to be dealing status effect no matter what build you're using with Moze, as long as you have Cloud of Lead, which most meta has that build. So you're going to be able to get Iron Bear fuel regen very quickly. This is really good for the pet version because he's going to be staying out the field. You and Iron Bear are going to be applying status effects everywhere if you're using the right weapons. So Iron Bear is going to have a really big benefit from this. He's going to be able to stay on the field for a very long time, and at max points that gives you 25% more fuel return. That's freaking huge. You're going to get Iron Bear. If you have 5 points in this and maybe some class mods that increase this, you're going to have Iron Bear be out there like 100%. I could see this being really good with Flare, because Flare gives you 2 times increase if you're at max fuel, and this just lets you stay at max fuel very easily. So this is definitely a Flare oriented skill point, which makes sense since it just came out for a DLC. They might have been playing in ahead with Flare. I'll just give that 5 stars. That's a really good skill. Let's move on to my little friend. Iron Bear spawns with an incendiary Vladoff assault rifle in addition to Iron Bear's other weapons. This is a very good action skill augment. I might even say it's the best one, because it gives Iron Bear, no matter what weapon you're using, a chance to ignite people. And the name of the build is, status effects. So this just helps pretty much every single thing in the skill tree. If we're just ranking it from skill tree alone, I give it just 5 stars. But there's another action skill augment that I feel like is going to be a little bit better than this. So I'm only going to have to give it 4 stars because it has a lot of potential. It's going to be able to boost a lot of your stacks, a lot of your bonuses. It's going to be able to activate Fired Up really quickly if you have this on. But I feel like you're going to be able to activate Fire Up already. So I don't feel like this is completely necessary, but it's probably going to be your go-to action skill augment besides the other one we're going to look at, which is Efficiency Engine. Moze gains increased gun damage the longer Iron Bear has been active. We don't know what the max for this is going to be. The max could be like 100%. The max could be 200%. We've seen maxes go to like 900% before, with like Zane and stuff, with his like violent momentum. If this has no limit, which I'm sure it has a limit, but if the limit's high or has no limit, this is a god tier. And even if it does not have a limit and it's like it limits at 50%, that's a free 50% gun damage you have very easily, because the whole tree is going to make Iron Bear stay out there. And you already have a bunch of stuff in Moze's other tree that is used in every single meta that keeps Iron Bear up. And this will just keep the pet out there pretty much the most important thing for you, because you're going to be dealing so much more gun damage every second. You're going to get tons of stacks. It's per second. So every second in Borderlands goes like that when you're playing. It's a crazy. Whatever the limit is, I feel like you're going to be able to get that really easily. This is mainly great for like slaughters, long boss fights with immunity phases, like any type of takedown. This is going to be god tier. I'm going to give this 5 stars. lets Moze just deal crazy amounts of damage very, very easily. That's going to be your go-to action skill augment, I feel. So we have the feature creep. Iron Bear increased damage by 18% and Iron Bear damage resistance by 45%. Now, if Iron Cub is squishy, this will be a necessary point. I don't know how squishy Iron Cub is going to be, but if he's squishy, this is going to be necessary. If he's not squishy, this will make sure he always stays out there. Iron Bear damage plus 18%. It's a huge amount, but you do have to go down to tier 5 to get that bonus damage, so you're probably not going to dual spec into the 4th skill tree to just get the Iron Bear damage. This will probably only used if you're using Iron Cub build and you want to keep him alive. And if Iron Cub happens to deal millions of damage by himself, heck, we never know. We'll see. This 18% increase will be huge. But for now, I'm only going to give this 3 stars. This has potential, but I feel like Iron Bear is usually pretty tanky, and we have a lot of things in the skill tree that keeps him alive already. So I don't feel like this is 100% necessary, but we never know. I'm just going to give it 3 stars and leave it. Next, we have Limit Break. This increases Mo's action skill cooldown rate whenever a status effect is applied. It has a max stack of 10 and a cooldown rate of 12. So at max stacks, if you can get that, 120%, this will allow Iron Bear to just come back just like that. But we already have a lot of points, can already do this, and a lot better without having to use status effects, and the status effects are kind of abysmal. Status effects don't deal a lot of damage, as I said before, but I feel like Grizzled already does a good job at cooldown rate, so I don't feel like these are very necessary. In the current meta, I don't feel like we'll be using this ability personally. I'm going to unfortunately only have to give this 1 star. We already have so many things in Moze that lets her action skill cooldown come back that I don't feel like we need this, and it's all the way down in tier 5. That's just way too far down to be really useful. Superior firepower. Whenever Moze or Iron Bear inflicts a status effect on an enemy, they gain increased status effect damage, so it stacks to 100% status effect damage, but status effect damage already deals like no damage, so 2 timesing 15k dot per second will turn into a 30k dot. It's just not going to be useful. I mean, a lot of the points in this tree that aren't good have relation to status effect damage, and status effect damage is just so abysmal. I don't feel like this is going to be good at all. This is 1 star, unfortunate. And then we'll go back to the capstone. Running on fumes. Whenever Moze or Iron Bear ignites an enemy, Iron Bear does not consume fuel for a short time. This is just 1 point. It's capstone. You're going to be igniting enemies with this build. That's the name of the game. Very, very easy. We have Cloud of Lead that lets us ignite enemies. Just free Iron Bear. Chance of not consuming fuel. This is huge. This is really, really, really good. This will just let you mow down enemies. I feel like this is going to be extremely useful when you're piloting. This is the capstone you're going to want to get when you're doing a piloting build. Kill anything you want for extended period of time. So this will increase Iron Bear's uptime by a huge amount, thus increasing our DPS with Iron Bear. Really great in the current meta, I feel, especially with a flare class mod. This is just going to deal crazy amounts of damage on pilot. As for Iron Cub, this is definitely a great utility for Iron Cub. This will let him stay on the field longer, but I feel like it's going to be a lot more useful on piloting Iron Bear. So we're going to give it 5 stars for the current meta. That is one of the best capstones Moze has right now. If you guys want to see any Moze build videos, I have a 50% flare build that lets you deal crazy amounts of damage in Iron Bear and out. So it lets you be in Iron Bear 50% of the time and on foot 50% of the time. We also have Vindicator gas called Moze build that lets you just deal crazy on foot damage, constantly throwing out the grenades. How did you guys think about my ratings? If you guys disagreed on some things, comment down below. If you felt like it was justified, also tell me. I'm open to criticism. I'd love to hear you guys' opinion. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I hope y'all have a great day. Bye-bye. And the last shall be first to immerse in a pass out heat, facing him out with a moxie melt till he woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. War in a cave with a torch on a wall, then a window arrangement of porcelain dolls.